While all of Europe is paralyzed by the disruption of its most critical logistics route through the Strait of Hormuz, China left them behind 10 years ago with a transoceanic maritime fleet. We are talking about ships so massive that if you lined up them end to end, they would stretch for nearly 8 miles. You heard that right, 8 miles of advanced Chinese maritime technology. In the next few minutes, you will witness the most revolutionary ships China has ever built. Welcome back to Massive Tech. Before we dive into the deepest waters to see how far the West has been left behind, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our next in-depth technical analyses. Nearly 90% of global trade moves by sea. Everything from oil and gas to electronic components depends on maritime routes stretching tens of thousands of kilometers. But for over a decade, the world has focused only on the Malacca Strait, overlooking that China has been quietly deploying a lesser-noticed but extremely ambitious strategy, advancing into polar waters and gaining access to the Arctic, a region containing trillions of dollars in resources, while opening maritime routes that can shorten the Asia-Europe journey by many days at sea. It's not that European governments ignored this, but rather that instead of facing thousands of ice walls that could lead every ship to the same fate as the Titanic, they chose the safe and guaranteed path. But that is only someone else's problem, because China has found a solution for itself. The first megaship I want to introduce is Xue Long 2, the first icebreaker entirely designed and built by China, launched in 2018 and officially operational in 2019. This is not just a product for research, but to turn the Arctic from a natural barrier into a controllable corridor. With a size equivalent to a 120-meter football field and weighing up to 13,000 tons, the entire ship carries a weight similar to thousands of elephants concentrated into a single block of steel. It may not be the largest ship, but it does what the Titanic could not: break the ice. Unlike other exploration ships with sharp bows, Xue Long 2 features a 20-degree incline, calculated to do something most traditional icebreakers aren't optimized for: climbing onto the ice instead of trying to pierce through it. When approaching an ice layer nearly 4 meters thick, equivalent to the height of a 2-story house, Xue Long 2 does not accelerate to ram through, because that method consumes massive energy, puts direct pressure on the hull, and carries the risk of damage. Instead, it slowly raises its bow, crawls onto the ice surface, and then uses its entire 13,000-ton weight to press down from above. You can imagine it simply not smashing a glass pane from the front, stepping on top of it and letting gravity do the rest. But this mechanism is only effective when the entire ship is designed around it. The hull uses a specialized cold-resistant steel that does not become brittle at extreme sub-zero temperatures, a detail where even a minor flaw could cause the structure to crack under heavy load. The sides of the hull are designed with a slight curve, helping to reduce friction and allowing the ship to slide through the broken ice instead of getting stuck. Underneath, a propeller system combined with electric motors not only provides thrust, but also agitates the water beneath the ice, reducing grip and making the ice ahead easier to break. Everything functions as a linked chain. That very detail is the key to China's success. Most Western icebreakers are designed to confront the ice, trying to pierce it with force and power. Meanwhile, Xue Long 2 is designed to exploit the ice's weakness using gravity, friction, and structure to break it more efficiently. The benefit doesn't stop at just being able to go. You are opening a new route where goods can move faster, less dependent on traditional bottlenecks like the Malacca Strait or the Suez Canal, while reducing operational costs in a way that old routes cannot compete with. More importantly, China now controls access to Arctic research in ways that Western nations simply cannot compete with. This ship is not just exploring polar regions. It is declaring sovereignty over polar territories that no one has yet claimed. If the Arctic is a problem of distance, then the ocean floor is a problem of physical limits. And that is where China decided to prove the opposite. This is Haiyang Shiyou 981, not just a ship. You are about to witness an engineering marvel on a scale so massive that it completely redefines what is possible in the deep ocean. A colossal semi-submersible drilling rig about 130 meters long and weighing over 200,000 tons. It is as if 30,000 elephants were frozen at a single point in the middle of the sea. When this rig was first deployed, Western energy giants refused to believe it could function. The depths it was designed for, over 10,000 feet, were considered the absolute ceiling of human engineering. But China didn't just meet that challenge. They shattered it. More than 3,000 meters below the surface, a depth where the pressure is enough to crush metal if the structure isn't flawless. An environment where every error is a ticket to disaster. This was once seen as the ultimate technical limit, but CNOOC 981 stands firm here. Instead of trying to grip the seabed with anchors, it maintains its position using a dynamic positioning system with over 20 thrusters working continuously, calculating every movement of waves, wind, and currents in real time, even while currents and typhoons rage around it. This is the fundamental philosophical difference. The West tries to hold its position through physical structures. China chooses to hold a position through control systems. One side relies on the limits of materials. The other shifts the problem to the power of computation and control. Next are the drilling towers, standing over 120 meters high, managing drill strings weighing thousands of tons as the bit passes through the water column, hits the seabed, and continues to pierce kilometers deep into the earth. Looking at the big picture, this is no longer just offshore extraction. It is accessing a tier of resources that previously didn't exist in reality. Operators can control drilling from miles away, guided by ultrasonic waves and real-time pressure sensors streaming data directly to their screens. One miscalculation, one moment of distraction, and you face an environmental catastrophe. But the nightmare scenario keeping energy powers awake at night is this. China has mastered the technology to extract resources from the deepest parts of the ocean, giving them access to energy reserves that were previously untouchable. However, the conquest of the deep sea is far from over, as China's next rig is set to go even further, reaching territories once deemed inaccessible. Haiyang Shiyou 982, an even more advanced successor. This semi-submersible rig operates in water depths exceeding 13,000 feet, pushing past every previous boundary. With dimensions nearly matching its predecessor, this rig doesn't just catch up to Western rivals, it surpasses them by an entire generation. The technical breakthrough here is foundational. Improved mooring systems use composite cables instead of traditional steel, reducing weight while significantly increasing holding power. The rig can maintain its position in hurricane-force winds and 50-foot waves without a scratch. What makes them truly terrifying is their drilling capability. This rig can drill wells extending over 25,000 feet horizontally into the ocean floor, weaving through rock layers to reach reserves that no other nation on Earth could even locate. The precision of the borehole diameter is kept within a fraction of an inch over thousands of feet. It is the ultimate nightmare for traditional energy powers because China has not just caught up, they have overtaken the world. What you've just seen is merely the tip of the iceberg, the part China allows the world to see, impressive enough to grab headlines. But what comes next is what truly holds the outcome of the game. If you only work hard, you cannot win, because there will always be someone who works harder. But if you start from the right place, all that's left is the hard work. It is the Ocean Borehole, a ship that doesn't overwhelm you with its size or mechanical power, but is the silent force determining whether the entire system behind it operates effectively, because it doesn't carry raw force, it carries information. Imagine standing in the middle of the ocean, surrounded by an infinite void, with thousands of meters of pitch-black water beneath you, where there is no light, no complete map, and no visual guidance whatsoever. You could have the best drilling rig in the world. You could have the most powerful ships. But if you don't know exactly where the resources lie, what the geological structure is, or what the conditions are below, all that effort could still result in zero. That is the point of difference. The Ocean Borehole is equipped with a multibeam sonar system, constantly scanning the seabed and reconstructing 3D maps with surgical precision. It doesn't just identify the terrain, it allows for the detailed recognition of every structure and every minor shift deep within the ocean. And that process doesn't stop at scanning. Unmanned submersibles are deployed to depths of over 6,000 meters, where the pressure would crush most equipment, if not specifically designed for it. And once there, they don't just record footage. They directly collect samples, analyze them, and transmit data back in real time. Every layer of sediment, every trace of minerals, everything is transformed into immediately usable data. While the rest of the world is still searching and testing, China is operating on a different level. They don't search, they already know. And when you already know, you don't need trial and error. You don't need to find the way, and you don't need to waste resources. You simply deploy precisely at the right point. That is why the technologies you saw earlier, the icebreakers, the drilling rigs, the gargantuan machines are not the true advantage. They are merely tools. The factor that decides the game lies behind them. The data, the maps, and the ability to understand the ocean at a level the rest of the world has yet to reach. Additionally, between 2016 and the period following 2020, as global demand for offshore energy and wind power began to accelerate, China sequentially commissioned decisive engineering platforms such as the Hongqi-Gang and Zhenhua 30. The Hongqi-Gang is a semi-submersible heavy-lift vessel with a length of approximately 546 feet, over 160 meters, and a displacement of around 40,000 tons. However, the true significance lies not in these figures, but in their operational mechanism. The ship can partially submerge its hull below the waterline, creating a massive flat transport plane that allows oversized and overweight structures such as drilling rigs, offshore wind turbine bases, or industrial modules to be floated directly onto the deck without being dismantled. This process not only saves time, but also eliminates the inherent risks of offshore assembly. Instead of breaking down a structure and rebuilding it at sea, a process that can take weeks, the Hongqi-Gang enables monolithic transport and immediate deployment. Its main deck can support loads of approximately 3,000 tons, equivalent to placing hundreds of heavy industrial units on a single surface, while maintaining total stability in the open ocean. Meanwhile, the Zhenhua 30, with a length of about 620 feet, nearly 190 meters, and a displacement reaching 96,000 tons, handles the most precise stage of this chain. It is equipped with a dual crane system boasting a total lifting capacity exceeding 4,000 tons, enough to lift entire drilling modules, wind turbine towers, or massive offshore infrastructure components in a single operation. Notably, these vessels emerged just as the global energy industry began moving further offshore into deeper and more complex environments, especially after 2020, as offshore wind projects in Europe, the US, and Asia grew rapidly. It triggered a massive demand for the installation, transport, and maintenance of these ultra-heavy structures. In this context, the charter cost for a heavy-lift vessel or an offshore crane ship can range from $500,000 to over $1 million per day. A typical project often lasts from weeks to months, meaning a single contract can generate revenue between tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, not including the auxiliary maintenance, repair, and decommissioning services throughout the project's lifecycle. This has created the strategic leverage for China to break through the constraints previously imposed by other energy-dominant nations.
It is a sight that may well be worrying the authorities in both Taiwan and Washington. A new Chinese warship for its navy, which is
combined with the perfect knockout blow from the aircraft carrier Fujian, China seems to have successfully seized control of the Arctic maritime race. The Fujian is the most advanced aircraft carrier China has ever built. Launched in June 2022, with an estimated displacement of over 80,000 tons, equivalent to a floating city moving across the ocean, where operations are no longer experimental, but have entered the stage of practical deployment. This is a generational leap. While most previous aircraft carriers, including long-standing Western designs, still use steam catapult systems, an effective but bulky technology that consumes massive energy and is particularly easy to detect via thermal signatures and operational footprints, the Fujian takes a completely different path. It utilizes the electromagnetic aircraft launch system, a system that creates almost no obvious thermal signature, operates more quietly, more precisely, and most importantly, possesses superior acceleration control for every launch. When a stealth fighter is moved into position, it takes only 2 seconds for the aircraft to be propelled from a standstill to a speed of approximately 120 miles per hour, equivalent to accelerating from 0 to over 190 kilometers per hour in a span shorter than the blink of an eye. This is not just a technical improvement. It opens up a completely different mode of operation, more flexible launch capabilities, higher efficiency, and especially silence, a critical factor in the context of increasingly dense satellite surveillance. When placing the Fujian into the entire picture built previously, you will begin to see a structure that is no longer fragmented, where layers of capability from pathfinding and data collection to extraction, operation, and protection do not just exist in parallel, but complement each other, creating a system capable of continuous operation in various conditions without relying too much on the outside. And looking more broadly across the entire Pacific region, where most critical transport routes and global supply chains are concentrated, the emergence of platforms like the Fujian is no longer an isolated step in military technology, but part of a much larger vision, where economic power, infrastructure, and military strength are gradually being integrated into a unified structure. Everything you've just seen, from icebreakers and drilling rigs to survey systems and offshore operations, is not actually an isolated technology. They are deliberate steps designed around a single objective: the creation and control of energy. In the global landscape, the United States remains the leader in oil and gas production, with crude output reaching approximately 12 to 13 million barrels per day. They possess large-scale offshore extraction in the Gulf of Mexico, supported by modern fleets and rigs. However, this entire structure still relies on a familiar model: offshore extraction that remains dependent on land-based infrastructure and energy, resulting in complex supply chains and sharply rising costs as operations move further from the coast. Russia, meanwhile, controls one of the world's most resource-rich regions in the Arctic, holding an estimated 13% of global oil and 30% of undiscovered gas reserves. They maintain the world's largest fleet of nuclear-powered icebreakers to ensure year-round operations. Yet, their system still revolves around extracting and transporting resources back to land, making efficiency highly dependent on fixed infrastructure and harsh geographical conditions. In contrast, China does not lead in reserves or oil and gas output, with domestic production at only about 4 million barrels per day. Instead, they are pioneering a different approach by integrating technologies, from icebreaking and surveying to extraction and offshore operations, into a system capable of generating energy directly at sea rather than being dependent on land transport. The difference lies in the systemic architecture. The US optimizes output and extraction efficiency. Russia focuses on resources and accessibility, while China is developing a model where energy is generated, maintained, and utilized right at the point of extraction, especially when paired with platforms like floating nuclear power plants, allowing the entire system to operate independently for long periods. When compared on the same plane, this is no longer a simple competition over technology or resources. It is the divergence of 3 distinct approaches. One leads in output, one owns the resources, and one is building a system capable of controlling the entire maritime energy creation chain, where the advantage comes not just from how much is extracted, but from how long that system can be maintained and expanded without external dependence. In the near future, China may not only extract resources from the ocean, but also control the entire ecosystem operating within it. If the ocean becomes an energy domain, who do you think will hold the power? Leave your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next analyses.